U.S. state in New England is known for sandy shores and seaside colonial towns. It's home to several large cities, including Newport, which is famed for selling and Gilded Age mansions such as the Breakers. Providence, its capital, is home to Brown University, Green Roger Williams Park, landscaped Water Place Park, and Riverwalk, with the famed Waterfire art installation. Number 3. Glowing Humanoids. Two friends were in a fishing tournament in Smithfield, Rhode Island. They continued fishing into the night. They then began to observe glowing humanoids gathering along the edge of the lake. The following is their account. A friend and I were fishing in an evening friendly bass tournament on 7/2/1992 from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Smith and Sales Reservoir in Smithfield, Rhode Island. The fishing picked up as the tournament ended, so I convinced my friend to go back out for a night bite. Somewhere around 11 p.m. we were fishing at the end of a peninsula, facing the shore with a dark, empty house on the land. It was very quiet, but I thought a helicopter was coming down in the cove behind the house where we couldn't see, but no noise. I gestured to my friend, but when the lights dimmed, we excused it as vehicle lights. Must have come down the road and backed away, but we had never seen a vehicle approach. We continued fishing towards the shore in plain view of the house when I noticed what looked like children playing with flashlights moving frantically in one of the rooms of the house through the windows. My fishing partner and I decided people must have come home to the house, even though we had never seen a car or people, and the power must be turned off in the house. We continued fishing, although we had never seen or heard anyone. There was an abnormally 7-foot tall, human-shaped figure with a smaller child-sized human-shaped figure, with the larger one looking like it was holding a flashlight, looking for frogs and such at the water's edge. The odd thing was the way they were illuminating, almost like a glow in the dark, but we dismissed that as the flashlight reflected off the water back at them strangely. Just then, we noticed about 15 to 20 glowing-shaped figures all on the shore facing us, all different sizes, and we got freaked out because there was never any noise this whole time, and we were close enough to have heard people walking in the brush near the shore. Just as we were getting scared and contemplating leaving, the flashlight the first big human-like figure was holding shined directly toward our boat. My partner said to start the motor and let's get out of here. As I was starting to set the choke and pull the cord of the small 5 HP outboard motor, the flashlight levitated across about 30 to 40 yards of water as I was keeping half an eye on it and starting the motor. When it turned over and I put it in gear, I looked up and the light was about 8 feet above our small boat. I never looked back, and it was about a short 3-minute ride back to the boat ramp. We hurried, throwing the boat in the van, and got inside the van in shock. All the dogs on the lake were barking loudly. We never heard a dog before this. My friend made me promise not to tell anyone, and I haven't until now. Number 2. The Haunting of Helen Whitman. It all started on a Cuban night in 1845 when famed writer Edgar Allan Poe first saw Sarah Helen Whitman tending to her rose garden at 88 Benefit Street. An established poet, activist, and intellectual force in her own right, Whitman was dressed in white under the moonlight, and Poe was immediately smitten. So much so that he wrote a poem about the one-sided encounter. They went on to delegate poems and valentines to one another before finally meeting in person in September of 1848. Their short courtship included many conversations between the stacks at the Province Athenaeum and afternoons while away in Swan Point Cemetery, where Poe eventually proposed. Despite her loved one's objections, Whitman agreed to marry him if he stopped drinking. They were set to wed on Christmas Day, but alas, 2 days prior, Whitman received an anonymous note at the Athenaeum claiming her betrothed had been seen drinking. She promptly called off the engagement. Poe died just 10 months later under mysterious circumstances in Baltimore. Whitman, meanwhile, remained in Providence as a fierce defender of his reputation until her death in 1878. But are these remnants from their relationship enough to keep them from moving on after all these years? Levi L. Leland, founder of the Edgar Allan Poe Rhode Island guided walking tours, has heard many first-hand tales from those who have reported they've seen ghostly figures in period clothing at the Athenaeum, or have felt taps on their shoulder while studying alone on the steps. Poe was only really known to wear a black suit because that's all he had, so the connection makes sense, Leland says. He had unfinished business here as far as Whitman goes. And with Whitman hosting seances in, I think, some attempt to get closure after his death, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe he's stuck. Whitman promised that she too would return to the mortal world post-death. Number 1. The Artillery Company. Rumor has it if you stand outside of the Artillery Company and take a photo of the building, you just might capture a figure lurking in the second window from the left on the top floor. The window in question is attached to Farrell's own office. Could the spirit be the artillery's longest serving member, whose tenure spanned the Civil War in 1860 to his death after World War I in 1923? Perhaps it's Marion Richardson, a World War II nurse who survived service in Europe only to be murdered in her own Newport home at 83 years old.